What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of What If You Could. And a special treat today. I've got a wonderful young lady with such a great story, such a great soul. Um, Referred to me from one of my closest humans in the world. And we met and chatted, and I go, I love you. We've got to do this. So welcome to Cindy Leos. And I'm just going to go ahead and read your bio real quick, fire this off, and we'll get cooking. Right on. Cindy Leos, a Los Angeles native, began her movement training as a young child studying ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop, and musical theater, sparking an enduring love of all forms of movement that later ignited her desire to become a certified Pilates trainer. Cindy has worked with amazing and notable choreographers and has danced with the world famous Los Angeles Lakergirls. We all loved them. And of course, did the Las Vegas Pussycat Dolls, which we kind of share a fun story about that. Cindy is more than just a movement coach, she is a passionate somatic advocate. Her unique blend of diverse movement styles and somatic expertise equips her to empower others with their wellness journeys. She is committed to helping individuals discover the profound potential of their bodies and minds, turning into the wisdom held within their soma. Welcome to a transformative journey where your body becomes your guide. That's awesome. I love it.
Hey.
I can feel the energy from it already. We haven't even done anything yet. So, Cindy, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and share
Yeah,
this with you.
this will be fun. This will be fun. I guess after our conversation on the phone, we could have talked forever. It was like we knew each other for 100 years. And so, but the one thing that came out of it for me, because I am not a smart man, I'm the Forrest Gump of the world, but I love smart people and also people who keep learning. And when we were going through it, I was like, wow, you are always reaching, always learning, always trying new things. And I love that. And was that always there for you? Were you just someone who just always wanted to learn more and know more?
Yeah. Yeah, I think well, first and foremost, I don't think you give yourself enough credit because you are super smart and intelligent. So
Well,
let's
thank
reframe
you.
that right there. No,
We'll
I've
edit that
always
out.
loved, yeah, right?
No,
You gotta be kind to yourself. Your body's listening.
thank you.
I've always loved learning. I've been always very observant, watching people, learning from that. And I mean, I think we're ever evolving and expanding. And with that, there comes change. Without growth, there's no change. So yeah, I'm always learning because I think, we're always growing. And so at different times of our lives, we're going to have different pieces of maybe something that you did learn at one time that just didn't, resonate with you. At another point, it will. And you can go back to that toolkit. So I think my life has just been accumulation of building my toolkit.
Yeah. And you told me a really cute story that when you didn't tell me what grade, but you were young and you got your first B.
Oh
And
yeah,
it was
that was,
so
I
it
think,
was so
second
tragic.
grade.
Your mom had to come rescue you. So
Yes.
inside you, it's just been that passion, to do well, to achieve. And part of dance, I mean, especially ballet, not only is
Mhm.
it so powerful, but it's so precise. The movements are so precise, and maybe that's what made you so good at your dance and your passion for it.
Well, I think you kind of, if you spend any time with uh, ballet dancers, ballerinas, yeah, there's this, this perfection that you're always seeking that is never reached. Um, if anything, I would go back to the little Cindy and tell myself to chill out, girl. It's okay. Like, you know, it's okay. And to not strive so much for perfection, but to be present and to enjoy what you're doing. I know I loved, I mean, dance, like that's all I ever thought about I remember the first time my mom took me to dance class, and I was probably, 2.5, almost 3. And I didn't know such a thing existed. And so I remember, I mean, I literally remember being in the car and seeing the window and seeing girls that were probably about 7. So there are, some big kids in there, like learning ballet, in leotards and pink tights, and had their arms up and doing stuff. And I go, Mom, am I going to do that? She's like, Yeah, do you want to? Yeah. Are you serious? And the teacher, I think about her often because she later I found out she was former military. And so she was a drill sergeant with us. She, had these 2, 3-year-olds stand on a straight line and had a paddle in her hand and walked up and down the line. And she's like, We are here to learn. And if anyone gets out of hand, they're going to get this paddle.
Right on.
And I was like inside, yes, we're gonna learn. Like, I want to learn. I want to do what those kids are doing.
Do you hear in
Um,
your mind to this day, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Is
no,
that
that's a
part of it?
waltz.
Oh, is that the
Yeah, I'm more of a 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 4,
I thought there
six,
was like this
eight.
rhythm that they always nailed into you with ballet, but I
There
guess not.
is somewhat of a that. Well, that's more of a, but there is that. Yeah, later on jazz. Jazz is.
Yeah.
I like jazz. There's a little more freedom in that. So you have the underlying technique of ballet, but there's some flavor on it.
So when you show up, you're this cute little doll. You're still a cute little doll, but imagine,
I just imagine, yeah, a
you
little
at two or
little.
three, right? With the tutu and the whole thing, and then these bigger girls and stuff. But yet feeling that passion of the discipline is like unheard of. Because I mean, I still don't have that discipline and I'm 61. So
I
that's
think some
kind of
people naturally
unique.
kind of either have that or your surroundings. I also had older brothers, so my brother above me is 9 years, and I have to say, like my brothers played such a huge role in my life and who I am. I think as a person, my oldest brother is 12 years older than me, and he loved music. So he was my biggest encourager, like, because he loved jazz and funk. So, yes, I was in ballet class, but I would come home and go in his room and he's blasting his music. And so I'm in there, doing my, whatever comes out of me. And then my brother above me, he was very athletic and more of a daredevil and trying things. And so I would watch him and like, okay, like I'm going to try that. I want to do that. And so I wanted to ride my bike with him and he let me, but I was, 5 years old and I had to keep up with that 14-year-old and he didn't show me any mercy. Um, but I liked it, because it's like, yeah, let's do this, because I
That's
think it also
that's an
takes.
in that's an interesting kind of dichotomy. It's like at one sense you're a total tomboy, right? Keeping up with your brothers, and on the other sense you're this ballet dancer,
I'm a super girly girl, but I like to like play like girly girl, but I mean, I grew up with brothers.
Badass girly girl.
Badass girly girl. Actually, you stole that literally out of my mind. Like that was some telepathic
There
speaking
you
there. Cause I
go.
that, yeah. Yeah.
So you're this little youngster. You got these older brothers. you're keeping up with them, you're doing the ballet, so your tenacity comes real early. I mean, that tenacity is like in you right out the gate.
right out the gate. Yeah,
Awesome.
because I remember like after my first class, I asked every single day, when do I go back? When do I go back to dance? That's all
Wow.
I thought about. And then I just don't know necessarily where I got this from. But I remember if there was any time, like one thing people ask me, like, oh, can you still do the splits, or how's your flexibility? And yeah, I still maintain that. It's something that I still do every day, especially with all the movement that I do. But I remember being a beginner in that. I remember I couldn't do the splits. I remember being, like a foot off the floor and seeing the other girls that maybe could do it a little easier. And so that was like motivation for me to, I would go home and I would practice until I had it, which I would say, like, okay, chill out. It's going to come. We're going to stay at it, but you don't have to be so hard on yourself.
Your manifestation started early too. I mean, it seems like besides the Laker girl thing, which is crazy awesome, but even earlier than that, it seemed like you were able to go, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get hit that. And you were pretty good at doing that manifestation.
Yeah. I mean, didn't know what manifestation was.
Right?
But yeah, no, there was things of like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And figured it out.
Yeah, that's
Just kept
awesome.
at it, just constantly kept at it. I mean, I don't think I was a boisterous person about things. I was super open to, and I am still, of as you can see with like the thing how I keep on learning, of trying any and everything. Um and so I think that worked for me, of just staying open to opportunity, but of continuing, of never giving up, no matter how, because it did get challenging, especially with dance, and I wanted to be a ballerina. And I was always told from a young age, like, you don't have the ballet body.
That whole body thing. I mean, we're in it deep now. I mean, we even just go on about what body dysmorphia. Is that what they call it? That people are going through now when they're going through transgendering and stuff. I mean, but it just seems like forever. Who knows when it started? Maybe the 50s with pinup girls, or because I don't think it's always been around. I don't think when Annie
Probably
M
like
was
this.
down on the ranch that she worried about her body style, right?
You can go back and look at how they, for your slender figure, like the commercials they used to do. Um, probably, gosh, probably sometime in the 30s, that was like the, the foundation laid. And the narratives probably have kind of evolved from there, then like with the because it was like the 50s housewife to keep, slim and trim.
What
um
era did they do where they'd have their house girls come and squeeze them into their bodices? Maybe that was even the 1800s, huh? When they started.
yeah,
Yeah, when they
yeah. And I
started
mean,
worrying
I
about
mean,
that. Yeah, pushing the bosoms up and getting as tight as you can.
and
And then,
those
of course,
corsets, like, my
now the
goodness.
Kardashians have brought it back. It's like, why would you do that to yourself? But I would imagine, because you told me, being 5'2"
Mhm,
and being petite, and so that challenge of always fighting to work harder to get in. I didn't realize that most women in professional dance were that tall. It,
mhm.
for some reason in my brain, I thought it would make sense to be shorter.
Because
But so,
everybody thinks
yeah,
it's
so
kind
you've
of
had
the.
to fight that too.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that was something that I was always aware of. And so, um, but I didn't, even though I still thought it would, that I could make it work, I would find my avenue. Um, and that just made me like hone down more on my dance. Like, I just wanted to be the best I could, like technically. Like, I think growing up, probably like technical dance was, really the focus. and what I really focused on. So just to be as solid of a dancer as possible, to the point of like where, okay, like she's just a great dancer, we can't deny her. That was like my goal, because I'm like, okay, I may not, have the height or the body or whatever, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and you always have. You always kept fighting on it to go from one to the other to the other, from the hip hop to the jazz to ballet. I mean, it's just you always were kind of morphing to the next thing on that. When was the first time you saw a Laker girl and you said, "Oh man, I'm totally that."
So, I mean, I remember this. It was 1985, and Laker games are what brought the family together. That's like where everybody sat, in the same room watching Laker games. And my older brothers are diehard Laker fans, huge Magic Johnson fans, Magic Johnson all over their wall. And they showed the Laker girls, and my oldest brother, the one that I was always dancing, he, like I said, he's 12 years older. When he would have high school parties, I would go out there and dance. Like I'd get on the tables and dance.
That's awesome.
Those are the only high school parties I've ever been to. But he's like, Cindy, do you see those girls? Like, they're badass, huh? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you could do that. It was like a light bulb moment, just a light switch just went on. I was like, oh my God. And I turned to my mom and I go, Mom, I'm going to be a Laker girl. She's like,
How
okay,
old how old were you?
5.
Wow. That's so
5. So it was like my countdown of like, okay, so you have to be 18 years old. Okay, so I have this amount of time.
that's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. And the funny thing is, whew, anybody who remembers Showtime and that 10-year period, I mean, yeah, when they got Kobe and Shaq and the three peats and all that stuff.
But we had that dead that dead zone but between then, or
Right.
that rebuild.
But even Kobe and Shaq era could not touch Showtime. Nothing could touch Kareem and Worthy and Magic and that
Scott and
group of
Cooper, yeah.
players, right? Nobody. And the fact that we had such great rivalries,
Yeah.
with that against the Celtics, and I remember when Magic came out, and I still have that Sports Illustrated where he's on the cover on Michigan State when they win the championship, right? And he left as a sophomore and came to the Lakers, and that smile. I mean, when he got there and Showtime started, it was insane. We'll never have anything like that. Even Tom Brady with all the Super Bowls and the Patriots dominance was never as exciting as
Yeah.
Showtime. So you're a little kid, soaking in that energy, going, I
Soaking
want
in that.
that, right?
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, I mean, that was a time, and it can't be reduplicated. It was a time at, the 80s, this new entertainment to basketball. Um, I mean, you just, even though you are not there live at the forum watching a game, watching it on TV, it just bled through. You still felt that. I mean, it was showtime. And
It was
then,
Showtime.
and then the charisma that, I mean, Magic, like that smiled, he was ultimate team player, got everybody involved. It was a show. Then you had all the celebrities,
Yeah.
it was yeah, it was great. And then you had the birth of your dance team cheerleaders, the Laker girls that came around, and it was new and innovative that
And
hadn't been done before.
it's
That's the
such a
thing,
trip. It's kind of a trip because really they went to commercial and then the Laker girls popped on while during the commercial. So you didn't see them early. Like you really didn't see them. And then they became a thing, right? Then the Lakers. So now they got more TV time because it was like the thing. They were the Laker girls, right? So it was funny. They didn't cut away to them as much, or they would come back sooner so you could see the Laker girls perform. So they did become like a celebrity type of thing in itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now
Absolutely.
we talked about this a little bit, and my family's been in show business for 100 years, and I've always stayed away from it because I did wasn't really a big fan of what I saw in the industry, a lot of it and stuff. But one of the things that always hit me and kept me kind of from getting that bug was when you see someone who wanted something so bad and then they got it and it wasn't what they thought. You know, you see these young musicians or these young actors who like, it's not what they thought when they got there, you know, and you work so hard to get there. So how was the experience when you finally became, after this childhood dream, to become a Laker girl?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the journey getting there. Yes, it was, I I was dancing a lot. I danced a lot. I did a lot of training. Had been in I was in a junior jazz company. Gosh, that was probably like 8 to 10. And then probably 10 to 13 was just ballet. And then 13, I joined a teen company. And then 16, I was on a dance scholarship where I was doing a lot of training. Um, so, yes, a lot of energy put into dance.
Because
Like
I
I said,
forgot. I'm sorry, I don't mean to catch up, but I forgot. Yeah, the vision started at 5, so you had 13 years in between. I forgot about, or more, right?
I
So
had
that's right.
more because
Yeah, that's a long time
like
between.
we
That's right.
discussed, so I had the privilege of dancing for the LA Sparks, the WNBA. It was the inaugural season of the WNBA, and the Sparks had a youth co-ed hip hop dance team. Um, and I auditioned for that. I got that. I did that. That was a great experience. And dance wise, because although I did do hip hop, I was always told growing up dancing, you're not a hip hop dancer. You stay with ballet, you stay with the technique. And that's one thing I would also go back and tell, don't listen to anybody, just do what you want to do. And even if you don't think you're good at it, allow yourself to be open to it. Because with practice, I mean, yes, talent gets you far, but it's the other part of putting that intentional energy and focus into it. Um, so yeah, I did the Spark Kids, and that was at the Forum, and this is before Staples Center. I saw a flyer for Laker Girl auditions, and it's like, okay, I know I'm not old enough. I'm not going to be 18 till next year, but I mean, I want this experience. I just want to know, what this is. And, I want to see all the girls because back then, yeah, you had, probably 700 girls auditioning. And so I went to audition. I had one of my friends, sign the waiver as my guardian. And I had a great audition, because I was just coming off doing Spark Kids and, training my ass off. So I was sharp. I let them know who I was. That was my thing. I know I was probably a little showboaty, like, I probably was, but I just wanted to let them know who I was. I know I'm not old enough, but I will be back. And so next year I will be 18, so you better pick me.
So,
So,
but before that though, you're putting in like 10 years
mhm.
of dance and training before that moment even hits, right? I mean,
and
were
I
you
and
like,
I'd done other, I mean, I was in the industry, so I was doing a lot of work, whether commercial work, print work in the industry, dance stuff.
because
You know,
you did some child modeling and you did some child ad work and stuff like that.
yeah, and I was on Star Search twice in 89 and 90.
What did you do in Star Search?
Danced.
That's awesome.
I didn't win either time,
Did you get to meet
but
Ed McMahon? Did you get to
yes.
meet? Yeah. I
Yes.
always
Yes.
loved Ed McMahon.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a
So
nice man.
instead of being like, I used to work out a lot before my body broke down, so we used to call ourselves gym rats.
Hmm.
So when you were young and starting out like that, early like that, 5 to 15 age, were you a dance rat? I mean, were you just constantly in the dance scene, in the dance circuit?
Yeah. Yeah. I have to give it to my mother. I don't know how she did it. especially, I mean, in the 80s of, because I wasn't, you have like studio dancers. I wasn't just at one studio. My mom took me all around. So, I was dancing at Debbie Reynolds when Debbie Reynolds, they closed their studio probably, I don't know if it was 2018 or 19. Um, and so being in that environment as a in the 80s, because you had all your auditions. I mean, that's where Michael Jackson rehearsed for Thriller,
Wow.
so you had all of that, and I would watch the older kids doing jazz. And so I would just like in my mind videotape it, and then I go home, lock myself in my room, and just whatever like I remembered, just do my version of it.
That's awesome.
Um, so yeah, I was always, I had like my I think like 3 days of ballet. I didn't love tap. My mother said it was non-negotiable, so I went along with it. And in that, I
Tap is
did try
hard.
other things.
That's not
Well,
even fun.
well, the thing is, I started doing tap before COVID.
Hmm.
Um, and the styles have changed, like with dance on a whole scale. Um, but as a kid, it was just like I'm in a group with people tapping. I can't even hear myself. I don't even know what I'm doing. So like it's noisy. So that's kind of like, but I'm like, okay, I'll just, I'll do it. So, and I tried, my mom took me to like a gymnastics class. That just wasn't like my thing. I was like, please don't make me go back. I did piano, singing, acting, so I was always pretty much doing something. And then if I wasn't, I was outside playing with the cats, dogs, riding my bike
Yeah.
with my brothers.
You
So I
still
was
had
always
that Tom,
active.
you still had that Tom girl in you. Did your mom ever get
What's that?
mad because you'd come home in your tutu and go straight out on the bike and get all muddy?
Oh, well, I didn't get muddy. I always had to keep very clean. That was one thing. My shoes that had to stay clean. And my mom's more of a tomboy than I am. So
That's
she calls
awesome.
me a priss. She says, "Oh God, here comes the girly girl." So no, I mean,
That's awesome. So you've got all these years of training behind you, all these different types of techniques of dance. You're at your just physical freaking peak. You're
and
awesome.
I
You
went to a
go
performing arts middle school.
right.
And so, that was for dance. I went for dance. So yeah, I mean, all I thought about was dance, to be honest.
And then how old was the how old were you allowed to be to do the Sparks, to do the LA Sparks?
That was I think it was 13 to 17. So I was 17, so that was my first and final year.
Nice.
I was too old to return the following season.
Well, it's cool to see the chick basketball finally start taking off. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're kicking
because
ass.
it was just dead for the longest time. I mean, it was just
Hmm.
kind of like a write-off for the guys who own the NBA team. And I've always told people I like watching women's tennis more than men's tennis because the men's game is so just power game now. It's like
Yeah.
serve ace, boring, right? But the women will rally, volley, lob, I mean, drop shots. It's a much more
Technique. There's a little more, it's like technique. They rely on that kind of refined.
it's a more interesting game to watch. And I found that when I watched a couple of WNBA games, there's a
Yeah.
lot more passing. There's not so much showboating. It's just not dunking every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
These women are playing fundamental basketball. And so it was pretty interesting. But now it's blowing up. It's pretty
Yeah, it
crazy.
is.
Be a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit
great to
different to be
see.
a Sparks girl now, I would imagine, than it was back then.
Well, I mean, I'm so thankful that I got to, because it was still at the forum to experience, because the forum just had such a that the history, the energy, you just felt it in there. I would go because I had a commute, driving to Inglewood, and I would probably get there because I'm driving myself, an hour early. Because I would just go sit in the forum, just go sit in the stands, go sit in an orange seat, and
That's
just,
awesome.
and
That's
just like feel
awesome.
all of that energy and the banners and all of that stuff. So I'm glad I got to experience that. And it was the inaugural season, so there was a hyped energy
Yeah.
about it. I have not been to a Sparks game in a few years. since they've been at the Staples Center. Um, so, I mean, that would be fun to experience. I'm sure it's going to, be different. But I mean, that I think experience really did set me up for everything else I did in life. Like anything, it's just like these stepping stones. And
So what was it? So what was it like? So they tell you, listen, we love you, you're awesome, but you're 17, so no, you're not gonna be like a girl, but you can go for the sparks, and so you did, and you made that.
well, I did the Sparks first.
Oh, you did the sparks first before
I
you go.
did the
Oh, okay.
Sparks first, and it was, well, I think it was this Laker Girl auditions was the day after our last home game for the Sparks. And so I'm like, well, I have to, I just want this experience under my belt. Like, let me just go for it. And,
And you're a
you know,
badass 17-year-old who's
I'm
ready
a
to kill
badass
it.
17 years old. And, there's something to be said when there's no pressure, because like I knew, like, unless they legally changed something, that I couldn't do it. Like, so there was no stress. So to also not have that pressure, I was so chill that, so while they do a few cuts, but once you get into the choreography portion, everyone goes and sits in the stands and they call your number, and then you come out, and maybe it's, I don't, five at a time, come out to the court and do the combination that you learned. I was so chill that I was in the stands sleeping. Like someone had to wake me up, and they're calling your number. I was like, oh, okay. And just got up and went down there and killed it.
Did you
Um,
know ahead of time the routine you had to do? Because they gave
no,
it to
no,
you so
you
you
learn it
practice?
there.
Oh, okay.
No, no, no. You learn everything there. You learn, and so it's like the first thing is like you go across, you learn a across the floor combination. They do a cut there, and then you learn choreography, do a cut, learn choreography, do a cut, and then you do a freestyle kind of thing, and then that's the final cut for that day. And then um, they set up the next like interview portion, and then you have a dance portion. They kind of like draw it out as like a 2 week process.
That's
But yeah, so I got cut at the end of the day. I got a call from the director the next day, said, you're great, love you, come back next year when you're 18. I was like, I'll see you in a year.
and you did.
And I did. And like I had told you, that things kind of shifted. And I actually even just forgot, but I was interning for the Sparks the next season. So I did help out with the Spark Kids, but I ran the Sparks fan club. So I was still at games. I was still kind of involved in that. That was like during the summer, which I guess that would have probably been after the audition. Um, but yeah, that year of between when I auditioned 17 to 18, I was pretty focused in school, and I was I literally was doing like 22 units at school. I had a part-time job. I did not dance at all. Like that that's the first time in my life where there was like no dance. I stayed active. I became obsessed with Taebo. And I would do that 3, 4 times a week. Um, but then like looking back, like I probably like my one of my most unhealthiest times, I ended up getting shingles, and that was probably 2, 3 months before Laker Girl auditions. I, still got myself in my leotard and tights and went to the audition. And I quickly, when we were learning the choreography, I was like a little bit of panic kind of struck, because I was like, oh my God, like I have to focus. Like I have to pay attention, like, to learn this choreography. Like it's just not automatic. I was so mentally sharp before. And so that was a little like of a freak out moment. And then I ended up getting cut sooner than I did the previous year when I was 17. And I was devastated. I remember being in that parking lot in my car crying. So I was
That's
just like,
kind
oh
of
my God,
I
it's
mean,
not supposed to happen this way.
that's kind of such a crazy sort of letdown because you were so awesome at at 17, you knew you were going to come back and do it, but your life had morphed into school and doing credits, and you weren't dancing, so your body physically was strong, but maybe your dance muscles weren't where they had been, and the sharpness was a little bit off.
You lose
And
it. You
so
like,
that's a real kick in the head to go to walk in and go, shit, I thought I had this nailed, right? I mean, that would be quite a
it
heart
was
pressure.
almost, it was almost a little reminiscent of second grade getting that first B, because
But
I was like,
mom didn't
what?
have
I
to come get
studied. I was supposed to get an A. No, I probably wanted my mommy to come get me because I was in that car. Who knows how long I was crying, because then I had to go home and, tell everybody that, didn't happen.
Yeah, man.
Sorry, guys. No Laker tickets for you guys this season.
Do Laker
Try
girls get
again.
Laker tickets?
Yeah, you do.
Cool. That's a
They're in
pro.
the nosebleeds, but
That's okay. Hey, anywhere in that in because now they're in the Staples Centers, right? They had left the Forum
yes,
and now they're
they yeah. So in 20, I'm like, what decade are we in?
I don't even know.
19.
I
So it
don't
was in the
remember.
19, was in the 1900s. 19. I'm like 1919. What
I
am
don't
I
know, but
thinking
all I know
about?
is you could take the Forum and put
99.
it inside the Staples Center. I mean, when you go look at the Forum now, because remember you'd go to the Fabulous Forum and it's like, oh, this place is so awesome, it's so epic. And now it looks so small, it just looks like a little music hall, which it is, but so you go home and you just go, screw this, I don't need this shit. I'm not doing this. You guys are a bunch of assholes. Or did you go, oh, I'm gonna come back and kick the crap out of these guys?
I don't remember my initial. I probably was depressed. I probably went home and got in bed. Um, you know, and there probably is a little bit of that, of like, I'm done, like, well, that's it. There's probably, because sometimes I know with myself, like, at least when I do that, it's kind of the letting go and not putting so much energy on it, and then like allowing myself just to integrate everything, calm down, it's okay, and then, you know get back on it. But the next day I did get a call from the director, and she's like, I don't know what happened, but I want you to come back next year, and I need you to do two things. I need you to cut your hair. Hair's just in your face when you're dancing. You can't see your face. And I need you to lose weight. And I was like, okay, see you next year.
And you rocked it.
And so, uh, no, not necessarily. So I did, well, one thing that I kind of have a little discrepancy with in the arts or the dance world, or even me dancing and doing various shows like in Vegas and stuff. You always, and I understood it because I didn't take offense to that of like, oh my God, am I fat? Or I just knew that there's an image to withhold. I watched those girls and I thought they were hot and sexy. Um, and so I was just like, okay, like, well, I gotta get this. I have to figure this out. I have to get it together. But on the end of the people who are giving you these weight notices or whatever, there's never any guidance. And so that's where you see in the dance world, even in, um, I mean, all the performing arts, where there's, eating disorders or like things like that, develop. Um, but I was like, okay, well, I have to figure this out. Like, what am I going to do? And I was working at Fred Siegel, which was, pretty popular fashion boutique in the 90s. They just recently closed. I was working there with a couple of my best friends, and I thought it would just be like a fun job where we can have lunch together and see each other at work. That none of that ever happened. And I was like, okay, this job really, I dreaded going there. So I was like, okay, let me see. You know what? I don't even know how GNC came up. I don't know if I saw in the paper they were hiring. I went and filled an application out, spoke to the manager, and I was hired. I was like, cool. So at least this is going to be an avenue for me to learn about nutrition, learn about supplements. I love learning. Um, so I thought that would be a great environment for me to be in. And then in college, I enrolled in nutrition classes and athletic training that I did. That was like 5 days a week, 7 in the morning.
It's
And so
interesting how the universe sent you over to GNC when you
I really
had
wish I could figure that out, like
yeah.
held that, because it was one of those things. We didn't have Google, we didn't have Instagram. I had no guidance offered to me at all.
Mhm.
Lose weight. Like, what is that? You know,
Exactly.
it's so, because it's like, oh, you could, maybe you just need to build some lean muscle and, simultaneously you'll, burn some fat.
So the
Um,
universe sends you to a nutrition store,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And that's like, and I love that job. Um, and I was there for a while. So I learned so much. That's when I first learned about the ketogenic diet. And I was putting that into practice back then in 98. And I went and chopped my hair off. And 99, I went to the lakergirl audition and I got cut.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.